Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Coming up this week, we take a look at a new API from Figma that finally gets released out of beta, plus a new version of Google AI Search that was leaked and is currently being tested by internal employees, along with a series of new tools you can use at work, including an app that lets you talk to the products that you use at work every day. As always, if you enjoy the briefing, hit the subscribe and the like button. But before all that, YouTube's CEO published his annual letter this week. And in this letter, he confirms that TV has now surpassed mobile and is the primary device for YouTube viewing in the US. And as well as this, he announced that after rolling out audio dubbing features, more than 40% of the total watch time of these videos now comes from viewers choosing to listen to the video in a dubbed language. In terms of AI features, YouTube is expanding its Dream Screen feature, and this is a feature which generates video backgrounds, if you remember. Alongside this, he also announced plans to integrate Google's impressive VO2 video generation models and confirmed the major focus is coming on practical AI tools that will help creators with things like video ideas, titles, thumbnails, and so on. In other updates this week, Figma has officially launched its Library Analytics API out of beta. So if you've not heard of this API before, it's actually a really handy API that product teams can use to understand how components are being used across your business. So using the API, product teams can do really helpful things like build component adoption dashboards like this one, which allow you to identify underused components across different departments. You can also do things like explore subtle differences in color, typography, and inconsistencies across teams. And you can create alerts when component usage drops below a specific threshold. So if you're currently looking for ways to manage component rollouts across your product, then this is an interesting product to take a look at. And speaking of Figma, over on the Substack this week, we take a look at the rise of emotion-led UX. And this comes from a piece where an argument was recently made by an exec at Figma who argued that emotional resonance, not features, are the new competitive moat for software. And in the future, the defining characteristics of an app won't necessarily just be its functionality, it will also be how it makes users feel. So in this piece, I take a look at over 30 different examples of how companies like Uber, Duolingo, Perplexity, Apple, and a bunch more are doubling down on crafting emotionally led UX to create a deeper relationship with their users. And this is particularly pertinent given that AI now speeds up the overall development process. So the risk here is that more features get added to products, which creates more bloat, which creates more stress and clutter. So if you're currently thinking about how you might be able to use emotion to create a stronger bond with your user, which results in better engagement and retention rates, then this week's deep dive could be worth taking a look over on Substack. Meanwhile, as products shift towards usage-based pricing models for AI features, Stripe has released a new feature to support this shift. This week, they announced the launch of a new credits feature for usage-based billing, which allows SaaS companies to offer free credits during trial periods. So the way this works is it allows companies to offer usage credits for things like AI features. So it's good to see how payment companies are evolving to support the changes in pricing that we're seeing throughout SaaS products as well. In other news, Google employees are reported to be testing out a new version of their search, which is called AI Mode. So this is based on a leaked email, which suggests that the new mode will be a form of intelligent search embedded within the traditional Google search that allows users to ask more open-ended and exploratory questions. So from the leaked screenshots, this does look a lot like the standard Gemini, but the difference here is that it's built directly into search. And this approach to me seems to make a lot more sense than just sticking to overviews. And if it does eventually get rolled out to everyone, this will mark a massive shift in how search works. I'm imagining that this potentially allows users to toggle the feature on and off. So rather than just having overviews merged with traditional search, this could be a completely separate product embedded directly into search that allows for a more kind of ChatGPT or Perplexity style conversational search, which is where the market is heading. Now let's take a look at some tools you can use this week. So first up is a company called Softer. And Softer originally started as a tool that could only be used with Airtable, but this week they've confirmed that it now supports multiple different integrations. And the idea behind this is that it allows members of the team to create custom business software without code. So some of the examples that they include things like a client portal, inventory management, an employee portal, CRMs, and more. So this is super helpful for those instances where your engineering team doesn't have any bandwidth to build something from scratch, but you're looking to build a really simple application that can be used at work. And speaking of building applications from scratch, this week, a new piece of analysis from Andreessen Horowitz looked at how people are using AI text-to-web app tools. So these are tools which allow you to use prompts in text to create web apps from scratch. And this analysis is broken down into consumers, developers, consultancies, and agencies. And some of the examples that are included here include things like a parent who created a bedtime story generator, a developer who built an ad-free Sudoku game, and a consultant who created a website for a Helsinki restaurant. So thanks to AI, people can now build web apps from scratch using just text prompts. And this is perfect for smaller apps. But when it comes to integrating things like payments, logins, and databases, there is still some complexity involved in plugging in the backend into these types of apps. But this is definitely something worth keeping an eye on. If you're a big fan of note-taking apps, then another tool this week to take a look at is something called Tana. And the UI here for this is actually really nice. It looks a little bit like a more sophisticated version of Notion. And what I like about Tana is that it gives you specific examples of how this can be used. And one of them is the ability to use Tana not just as a note-taking app, but also as a product roadmap or a Kanban board, as well as traditional things like calendars. It also comes with a feature called Daily Page, which is essentially a blank page to start every single day, where you can do things like plan your day, keep track of all your habits, and see all tasks that are due that day. So if you're a bit of a notebook nerd who likes to keep on top of productivity tools, then Tana is definitely something worth checking out. And the last product this week is something called Concierge. And if you've become used to the conversational paradigm shift, then this tool is for you. It basically connects to your everyday tools that you might use at work, things like Jira, Slack, Notion, etc. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to talk with your apps in natural language. So some of the examples it shows include, create tickets for the actionable items related to the Stripe in the engineering channel, or set up a meeting with one of my colleagues, or ping someone an email based on the Salesforce update that we just received. So this is a really smart use of natural language, combining it with the SaaS products that you might use day to day. Now let's take a look at some data and some trends. And the big story from this week was the reported bid that Elon Musk made for the non-profit part of OpenAI, which could complicate its plans to convert into a for-profit. So the bid here was $97 billion, and this was only for the non-profit part of OpenAI. And the reported overall valuation of OpenAI in their latest funding round was an estimated $340 billion. So I thought it might be useful to put this into context. And when you visualize it, this is how the current valuation of OpenAI looks. $340 billion is more than Uber, more than Airbnb, more than Spotify, more than Atlassian, slightly less than Netflix, and a lot less than Apple. Also this week, Anthropic released its report that it calls the Anthropic Economic Index. This is a new research piece from researchers at Anthropic, and it provides us with an insight into AI's role in today's workplace. So this analysis looked at millions of real-world AI interactions, and it reveals that 36% of occupations now use AI for at least a quarter of their tasks, with adoption highest among mid to high wage professionals like programmers and technical writers. The data also shows that AI primarily augments work rather than automates it, which suggests that a pattern of integration rather than replacement is happening across the workforce. After calling the Paris AI Summit a missed opportunity this week, Anthropic's CEO warned that AI is rapidly becoming more sophisticated and failing to regulate it could result in disastrous consequences. He says that the capabilities of AI systems will be best thought of as akin to an entirely new state populated by highly intelligent people appearing on the global stage, and that authoritarian countries could use it to establish global military dominance. So lots going on the global stage with regards to AI this week. Meanwhile, Reddit released its company earnings this week for the last quarter, and it reported that daily active users grew 39% from a year earlier to an average of 101.7 million. But this was below market estimates of 103.1 million, and Reddit's CEO said that Google's algorithm changes were partly to blame for this, which negatively impacted traffic. In the earnings, they also confirmed that machine learning translation continues to drive international growth, with 40 to 50% of its international growth in Q4 coming from machine learning powered translation. So if your product is currently only operating in one territory and you're looking for ways to power your international expansion, then leaning into translation services powered by machine learning could be an option for you. The CEO also teased an expanded version of its AI powered search tool, Reddit Answers, which is coming soon, and that lets users ask specific questions about the entire corpus of Reddit material. Moving on to AI agents, and the Wall Street Journal hosted a summit of its own this week, which was the CIO Network Summit, which was attended by various people from different companies, including the CTO from OpenAI. As part of this summit, they asked the attendees of the summit how they're using AI agents at work. 61% of attendees actually said that they're currently experimenting with AI agents, but 21% said they're not using them at all. So given that this is a highly technical audience that are focused specifically on AI, then that's perhaps a little bit surprising that almost a quarter of them say they're not even using them. And maybe there's good reason for that. And one reason is that AI agents still struggle with accuracy. In this piece of research, they found that GUI agents, so that is agents who have access to a graphical user interface, can only achieve 51.1% accuracy on unseen websites. But as we've seen with AI, this is the worst it will ever be, and it is likely to improve very quickly over time. And finally, a little update from Apple this week, where a new piece suggests that the company is delaying the next release of its AI product to avoid, in quotes, a Vision Pro style flop. So the company was due to release a lightweight version of the Vision Pro, which is more akin to glasses, but that product is said to be on hold, and now the focus seems to be on robotics. Apple released a research paper that explores human interactions with non-anthropomorphic robots, and in this piece of research, specifically a Pixar-style lamp, which is pretty fun. Longtime Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo says that supply chains currently indicate that Apple cares more about how users build perception with robots than their physical appearance, and that Apple's robot mass production is unlikely to start until 2028 or later, and that compared to other products like the iPhone, which was shrouded in secrecy, Apple has been unusually open about sharing some of the robotics research that they've been working on in the early proof of concept stage, and this is possibly to attract talent. Now, clearly, this is a very different product from the Vision Pro, but if this is true, then this is something that I would look forward to, because the problem with Vision Pros and any VR device is that it excludes you from the world that you interact with, whereas introducing a robot like this could make you connect better with the world around you, with a little help from a friend, which could possibly be a Pixar-style lamp. And on that note, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for listening and watching. We'll be back next week with another product briefing.